football fans in Hamilton from coast to coast and around the world. This is the fifth quarter show on YouTube. Yes, indeedy do. It certainly is. Final score, Tiger Cats 37 and the Redblacks 21. Hamilton with a big win and a game they needed to win, given what happened Friday night in BC with the Argos beating the Lions. Welcome, one and all. It is another edition of the fifth quarter show on YouTube and a variety of ways for you to interact with us on the show. There is a link at the top of the chat in which you can click and you can join me on the air, so to speak, in YouTubeville. You can certainly offer your thoughts on today's game, vote for your player of the game via the YouTube chat as well. And you can also go to my social media feed on X in particular, at Rick Zamperin is the handle. Use the hashtag fifth quarter and talk about today's game. What stood out for you? What did you like? What did you not like? If there's anything in that category, there might be. There might be the softish defense towards the end of the game certainly was made for a nail-biting last few minutes. But with 6:51 to go, one of the key moments, and there was a lot of big moments in this game, 6:51 to go, the Ticats have the football. They're up by one score. And I even sent this out in a post on X. This is a crucial drive for the Tiger Cats. They have to consume the clock and end this drive with a score to curb all the momentum that Ottawa had up until that point. They had scored 15 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Hamilton had to do something to stem the tide, to stunt that momentum, because Ottawa, after putting in Jeremiah Masoli, clearly had it. And lo and behold, it's a huge drive. 7 plays, 65 yards, about 3.5 minutes off the clock. Massive, massive drive that put a big stamp of, yes, indeedy do, we got the job done on this game. Offense played very well. Defense, especially in the first half, played very well. And in the third quarter, played very well as well. Special teams, well, we got a couple of missed field goals, which might be an item of discussion tonight. Lawrence Woods III gets back into the lineup, 83-yard touchdown, punt return for touchdown, and might be a candidate for player of the game. He's not my player of the game. I'll unleash my player of the game right now, and it's actually for the first time, I think, in a long, long time that I'm going with a group of guys for my player of the game. And that is the offensive line. And bear with me here for a second, because the offensive line, I thought, had maybe its best game of the season. Bordner, Revenberg, Beard, Woodmansey, and Murray. 0 sacks tonight. Bo Levi Mitchell was upright and rather comfortable for the whole game. 135 rushing yards. And I'm not even sure Bo was pressured a lot tonight. The offensive line, and a guy much smarter than me many, many moons ago, Coach Sal, John Salavanis, told me, and he is exactly 100% right, that an offense is only as good as its offensive line. The Ticats' offensive line was more than good tonight. That is for sure. Gave Bo time. Some passes you'll probably want back. Certainly the interception, which was kind of underthrown. It seemed like both quarterbacks were kind of meh in the first half. There's a lot of plays, a lot of throws I think they would probably want to have back. Who's your player of the game? Your thoughts on tonight's game? It is a huge Ticats win, 37-21. Look at the standings, and Hamilton is not even close to being officially out. Although, a couple wins for the Argos and a couple losses for the Ticats, and it's, good night, Irene. But 4-9 on the season with a monstrous game coming up on Friday, September the 20th in Toronto. That is it. Hamilton sweeps the regular season series, and we're having a serious discussion of, can this team do the unthinkable? Can they continue to pile up the wins? And the way BC played last night, that's not out of the question. Going into BC and registering a win, going to be tough. Hosting Winnipeg, I doubt the Bombers will have the West Division sewn up by them. Who knows? They might even be trailing BC or, who knows, Saskatchewan if one of those teams goes on a run. And then ending the regular season at home schedule against Calgary and then going to Ottawa for the final game of the regular season. I think we are all kind of hoping that that game means a whole heck of a lot. We shall see. Your thoughts on tonight's game. Vote for your player of the game. Oh, I should mention as well, email as well is open. I know I mentioned the X at Rick Zamperin, the chat here on the Fifth Quarter Show here on YouTube. You can offer your thoughts in the comments section. You can click on the link at the top of the chat if you want to join in on the fun and talk to me live here on YouTube. Let's go to, let's go to X first. How about we start with X? This one's from Jim, who says, do we have a win streak going, Rick? I think we do. The Ticats are playing with confidence, discipline, and even a little swagger. World of difference from the summer. Bell for player of the game, but Bo, Dunbar, and the D with 6 turnovers all deserve a mention. So let's mark down Greg Bell, who I thought had a tremendous game today, and I hope he's okay. He went down and he took a couple of big hits at the end of his run, and so let's hope he's okay. But 15 carries for Bell today, 99 yards, and a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. Great game for Greg Bell, for sure. History Nerd 1814 in the chat says, where was this team all season? The team needs to learn to play 4 quarters of football. A win is a win. Player of the game, Greg Bell. He's the wide receiver back we need. Okay, another vote for Bell. Great choice, by the way. I'm not going to say that's a bad choice. That's an incredible choice. He had a great game today for the Tiger Cats. You can send me an email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, and chime in on the chat, or you can click the link at the top of the chat and join me on the air here on the Fifth Quarter Show. Voting for a player of the game, so far 2 votes for Greg Bell, 1 for the offensive line. Back to X and Tiger Sammy says player of the game, Stephen Dunbar, but a special shout out to Destin Talbert. Thought he played his best game as a Ticat today. And Tiger Sammy goes on to say, brilliant performance today. All 3 phases clicked. Nice to see a bit of a fight. Going to be a long shot, but then he's got the GIF with playoffs. Jim Mora back with the Indianapolis Colts many years ago. One more on the Twitterverse, or the Xverse. This one is just Twitter user. That's an interesting handle. In terms of, this is the turnovers. 6 turnovers, and Twitter user says 5, unless I'm missing one. 3 picks, a fumble, and on downs. I have 1 on downs, a Moxie interception, an Usher fumble recovery, another Usher fumble recovery, a Talbot interception, and a Peters interception. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 to me. There you go. In the chat, click on the link at the top. You can send me an email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, to chime in on your thoughts on today's game. Vote for your player of the game. Let's go to the email. Number of emails coming in. This one is from Joe, who says, hey, Rick, man, this team is starting to really turning it around. It's too bad it took so long for this team to play well together. My player of the game is Dunbar Jr., made hard catches look easy. In no way do I want to get my hopes up, but I wish this happened earlier in the season. We are not out yet, and I hope this team keeps grinding and maybe, just maybe, get a playoff game, even if it means in the West, and you never know. Like I said, that's my Toronto Maple Leafs fan mentality coming out as well, but let's continue to take it one game at a time and keep this up, and please put Butler in with Bell. I hate seeing this guy on the bench, and what concerns me is having star players on the bench when they're not hurt can hurt our chances of getting good quality players in the next couple of years. We don't want to make it a place for good players who don't want to play here. We want the best players we can possibly get, says Joe. makes one more point. Two more things quickly. I feel like the CFL should have afternoon Saturday games every week, much more enjoyable. And if Ottawa put in Masoli, this would have been a much different game. I'm surprised it took them that long to make the quarterback switch, but I'm happy they took a while. Oski Wee Wee Rick, Joe from Niagara. Joe, number one, I'm going to put your Stephen Dunbar vote down. And number two, make some great points. I love the Saturday afternoon games, especially at this time of the year, right? The sun isn't up as long. You get a glorious amount of sunshine. It's always a great day to be at the ballpark. And hopefully everyone who did attend, although today's attendance 22,119, hopefully everyone had a great time at Tim Hortons Field today. Again, you can correspond with me in a number of ways here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. You can click the link at the top of the chat if you want to join me on the air. You can offer a comment in the chat. You can send me an email, fifthquartershow, number 5, 5th, fifthquartershow at gmail.com, or on X, at Rick Zamperin on X. Sam says, what is the Ticats record since you started on YouTube? Well, let's check it out here, Sam. That's a good question. So, game number one, it wasn't a good one. It wasn't a good one. It was the Edmonton game. Elks hammered Hamilton 47-22. Then we go to Winnipeg and lose that game 26-23. The last couple, though, Hamilton over Toronto on Labor Day 31-28, and blitzed another division rival in the Redblacks 37-21. So we're 2 for 2. We're going for over 500, which would be a huge one in Toronto next Friday night. Hopefully you can join me then. Stephen on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. He says, player of the game. Well, there are many worthy players. I award my POG to the defense. I had my least faith in them all season, and tonight's game was dominating and amazing. Great all-around game. Wondering what the official attendance was. Stephen, one vote for the D. Thank you so much. Stephen, the attendance was 22,119. Announced crowd. Not sure that was how many people were actually in the seats, but that's what was announced in the announcement in stadium. The almost blind guy says, phew, and have a great show. At least people should be happy. Absolutely. I think all Ticats fans should be absolutely ecstatic today. That was a big win. 4-9 is much better than 3-10. That is for sure. I mean, 4-9, look at the standings, and there was a previous person who brought up the crossover. The crossover is kind of sort of within reach. I mean, it's too bad that this Ticats team didn't beat Saskatchewan at least once. But Sask has 11 points after 13 games. The Ticats have 8. Saskatchewan is hurting right now. They started the season 5-1. And after that hot streak, they've lost 6. They've tied 1. Winless in 7. That is not very good as well. They are under 500 on the road. They're 500 at home. These are the Rough Riders. And they've scored 3 more points than they have allowed to date. Look at the Ticats, who are not only chasing a team like Saskatchewan, but let's not forget Edmonton as well. They've been surging too. The Ticats have scored 347 points. They've allowed 409. 3-4 at home. Their road record has to greatly improve if they want to really get into this playoff race. 1-5 on the road, simply not good enough. But the crossover possibility is still kind of sort of there when you really look at the numbers. If Saskatchewan continues to fall, and you know, they're going to break out of it at some point, you would think. You know, they have some talented players there. And but that's going to be a race to watch for sure. The Ticats win today. They did themselves a huge favor with this W. John E. says, we did it, Rick. Let's go, Cats. Randy says, player of the game defense. So there's another vote for the D. And another one from Johnny. My email tonight is a group of players that were my player of the game also. Right, John, we'll get to that. Let's go to X real quick to see if anyone has chimed in with a thought. Nope. All right, so back to the email we go. Again, the email address, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. This is Randy. Cats win. Cats with a capital win. Sorry. Randy says, good afternoon, Rick. A great Saturday and perfect start to the weekend with the Hamilton win. I have good feelings about the positive way the Tiger Cats have put together these last wins. Could it be a turning point? A possibility to win most of their remaining games? Mark Leggio did not have a great game. Hamilton could have had many more points in the first half, but this was stalled with 2 turnovers in the Ottawa end. Fortunately, we had enough points in the end. Way to go, Lawrence Woods III. We needed that kick return TD. I would have preferred an evening game, however. A horrendous officiating game against the Keandre Smith reception. Randy, I hear you there loud and clear. He kept his hands under the ball. I thought this would be challenged. Too much allowed by the Cats defense when Masoli entered the game. Where was the defense? My player of the game, says Randy, is Greg Bell. Stephen Dunbar. Stephen Dunbar was productive on the ground. He means through the air. Bo Levi Mitchell needs to shoulder responsibility for low scoring in the second half. If you can have 1,000 completion yards but no points, it does not cut it, especially if facing another strong team. At one point in the fourth, it was 10 of 13 for 129 yards for Mitchell. Not good enough production. Well, I'll just stop reading the email there just to say that he finished 20 of 27, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So I thought he... Certainly, as the game progressed, I thought Mitchell got even better in the second half. At least in the third quarter. They were really controlling everything. Randy finishes his point with, it would be good to beat the Argos next week. We have the win. Oski wee wee. May long live the fifth quarter. Thank you, Rick Randy in Oakville. All right, so if you're joining us here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube, there's a few ways for you to interact on the show. You can email fifthquartershow@gmail.com. You're seeing it on the screen right now. If you want to call in, click on the link at the top of the chat, and you can do so as well there. We're all voting for a player of the game. And, of course, you can go to X as well, formerly known as Twitter. Use the hashtag Fifth Quarter, and my handle is @Rick Zamperin. I think one of the key moments of the game was the Lawrence Woods punt return for a touchdown. Where's that been all season? They've tried so many different people in that role ever since Tyreek McAllister went down to the NFL and said, hey, I can play some football too. Lawrence Woods III with a big 83-yard touchdown, punt return for a touchdown that I think set the momentum in motion for this team to put a lot of points on the board when it mattered most. Yes, it would have been great to have touchdowns and even a couple of field goals off those turnovers, just did not materialize. But in the end, I think the Ticats played way better than Ottawa, that is for sure. B. Gross says, great game for the offense, but our defense still needs work. That's interesting. I thought the D was great. I mean, 6 turnovers, 1 on downs. You had, the 2 fumble recoveries, and you had 3 interceptions. I mean, I think the D played great. The only time I was thinking about, the defense isn't really playing great. Jeremiah Masoli comes in, they go way soft. I mean, they're playing ultra zone. Even on, the 1 touchdown that Ottawa scored, they were in like zone central. Did they think they had it in the bag? Maybe that was the mentality. I would not have thought that because there was like 10:51 to play in the game when Masoli came in. So maybe they relaxed just a little too much, a little too early. But it was nice to see that they kind of fixed it before the final gun went off. Let's see. Daniel says, Hamilton looks good. We better be careful here in BC. We okay you guys in 2 weeks. I think said we'll play you guys in 2 weeks. Yeah, that'll be a big game for both teams. BC's trying to get that number 1 seed in the West. Easier said than done because they lost, against Toronto last night. And I thought, the Nathan Rourke polling at halftime was interesting. Yeah, Vernon Adams Jr. is a great quarterback, but Nathan Rourke, I think it was the last drive that BC had. They score a touchdown, and I'm thinking, all right, after the half, this could be a very interesting game. Adams comes in, doesn't do much as well, and Toronto's defense really played well, and their offense played pretty good too. But BC's definitely going to want to win that game for sure because they're still trying to catch Winnipeg, who's kind of treading water. They got the bye week this week. It'll be a big game for the BC Lions as well. Join me on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com, 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. This email from Val, who says, well, that was a great game. Props to all the players. Most outstanding player is a tough call. So many choices, Bell, Dunbar, Mitchell, but I'm going with the offensive line. Still a playoff chance, says Val. Val, you're in agreement with me with the offensive line for player of the game. 0 sacks allowed, 135 rushing yards, no real pressure on Bo Levi Mitchell. For the first time in a long time, I said the O-line is my player of the game. Who gets your vote? Go on X, at Rick Zamperin is the handle. Use the hashtag fifth quarter. Climb aboard on the chat here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. Back to the chat we go. And again, if you want to call in on the show, hit the link at the top of the chat and you'll get into a waiting room and I will bring you on the show. Watson says, I see Jeremiah Masoli showed up and started overthrowing receivers like he did here. Now, he came in and was phenomenal. And, the Ticats defense kind of relaxed a little bit. But Jeremiah Masoli was cooking. I mean, the Redblacks had some serious momentum. Masoli, 13 of 19 tonight, 183 passing yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. Drew Brown, by the way, 17 of 27, 164 yards, and an interception. I should give some of the other stats for the Ticats as well. So I mentioned Bo Levi Mitchell, 20 of 27, 299 through the air, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Greg Bell, 15 carries, 99 yards. He had a TD. Ante Milanovic, Litre, 10 carries, 36 yards. And from the receiving corps, Stephen Dunbar Jr. had probably his best game of the year, I would think. Big catches, targeted 8 times, made 8 catches, 151 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. Shamar Bridges was great in the first half, kind of disappeared in the second half. He wasn't really targeted a lot. 5 receptions tonight, 55 yards. Giovanni Robinson, 2 catches for 18. Greg Bell, 2 for 12. Keandre Smith, 1 for 22, although probably should have been 2 for whatever. Tim White, just 1 catch tonight. That was very early on in the ball game. 1 catch for 21 yards, and Milanovic Litre, 1 for 20, and that turned out to be a touchdown as well. And defensively, Destin Talbert, a game-high 10 defensive tackles. He also had an interception as well. Stavros Katsantonis, 7 defensive tackles. Kyle Wilson, 6 tackles. Jamal Peters with 5 and an interception and a pass knockdown as well. I want to give some kudos to Nick Usher as well. He only had 1 defensive tackle, didn't have a sack, but he had a forced fumble and 2 fumble recoveries among the 6 turnovers that the Ticats had. And what have we been talking about for so long this season in terms of problems with this team? We've been talking about 2 things in particular. I mean, there's been so many things that we've discussed. Penalties and turnovers. Penalties and turnovers have been a hot button topic for this Ticats team. So much so that head coach Scott Milanovic weeks ago said, we got to fix this. And so tonight, 2 turnovers for the Ticats, and they committed 3 penalties. This must be a season low, and a number I have not seen in a long, long time. 3 penalties? 3 penalties for 57 yards for Hamilton. Ottawa committed 10 penalties for 87 yards. And of course, the 6 turnovers for Ottawa. Not a stat that they're too impressed with at all. On X, use the hashtag 5th quarter. The handle is at Rick Zamperin. Jimmy V says, complete game today. I'm giving player of the game to the entire defense today. Oski, wee, they deserve it. So here we go. 3 votes for the D, 2 for Dunbar, 2 for Bell, 2 for the offensive line. You know what that? And I'm kind of surprised Lawrence Woods Jr. or Lawrence Woods III has not had a vote yet. But hey, that might change in the next couple minutes. Caitlin in the chat says, hey, Rick, how can we call in? Caitlin, at the top of the chat, you will see a link. All right, it says 5th Quarter Show with Rick Zamperin. Click the link. If you don't see it, let me know, because it should be there. Click that link. You're going to get pushed into a waiting room, and then I'll bring you on the show. It's basically how you come on. Louis says, any chance for a crossover playoff berth? Louis, absolutely. If you missed it earlier, there is still a chance. I mean, any kind of playoff talk in Hamilton is going to be with the word slim. Like, the chances are slim, right? This team dug itself into a big hole, but they're nowhere near being mathematically out of it at this point. Now, a loss next week in Toronto is going to really hurt, but that crossover spot is closer than 3rd place in the East. Right now, the Ticats have 8 points. Toronto is 14, but out west, Saskatchewan is 10, or Saskatchewan is 11. Edmonton has 10. So they have to get at least 1 more point than the 3rd place team in the West. That's basically how the crossover works. And at no point in the history of the Canadian Football League's crossover process has an Eastern team crossed over to the West. So wouldn't it be something for this team that struggled out of the gate to be the first East Division team to cross over into the West? Not saying it's going to happen, but it would be great to see this year for sure. Karen in the chat says, great win. Dunbar, player of the game. There's another vote for Stephen Dunbar Jr. Nona says there's no link to call in. There's no link to call in. All right, let's change this right now. Let me post a comment. You let me know if you can see this link. Boom. It'll be at the bottom now of the chat. Let me know. And if you can see it, call in and join me on the show here. PKA says in the chat, I think the Cats are slowly improving. Bringing in Chris Jones has changed the team for better. I think Scott should bring in an OC so he can just focus on being head coach and get some new key players. So PKA, absolutely correct in terms of there has been some slow improvement. This team at least is trending in the right direction, right? They're picking up some wins. 2 in a row, big win on Labor Day, big win today, both against East Division opponents. The defense has played much better with Chris Jones kind of calling the shots. It's not perfect. They're not the best defense in the league by any stretch of the imagination, but they are better. And at the start of the season, you'll recall me saying that it was going to take at least a month for this defense to come together. There were so many new moving parts. There was 3 starters on this D that was on the team last year. That's a lot of new guys. And so I think now, maybe even a few weeks ago, they grew comfortable about where they were, how they were playing, how they were kind of interacting and trusting each other and trusting the system. I think they're at a place now where they can say, all right, they got it, and now they're making some impact. Luke S. says, Masoli, player of the game. All right, hey, listen, I'm gonna jot it down. I'm not in agreement with Luke S., but Masoli gets a vote. Who's your player of the game? You can hit me up on the chat. You can click the link, which I think has now appeared in the chat. I see it there. Let me know if you see it as well. And you can also email as well, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. And speaking of which, let's go to the email. This one is from Philly Filski, who says, well, that was an interesting game. I don't know why the Tiger Cats defense turned into soft churned butter as soon as the washed up Masoli replaced Brown at quarterback and engineered 2 scoring drives. But I guess they redeemed themselves with the Peters interception later to basically seal the game. Still going to be a long shot to make the playoffs, even if Tiger Cats beat Toronto next week. I just don't see the Argos crumbling completely at this point in the season, especially after beating the Lions last night at that concrete mausoleum called BC Place. While a crossover to the west is not impossible, you have to remember that both Saskatchewan and Edmonton own the tiebreaker against Hamilton. But more importantly, Saskatchewan and Edmonton still play each other one more time, and one of those 2 teams is guaranteed a win and the 2 points, an overtime tie notwithstanding. Philly Filski says, I will say at least this Tiger Cats team is not giving up and still playing hard. And as a fan, that's all you can ask, playoffs or not. One question, if Saturday CFL games are now televised on CTV, why is it still a TSN production? Don't get it. Great show you have. Take care. Philly, I'll answer the CTV TSN production question basically to say it's the same company. Bell owns the broadcast rights. They have TSN. They have CTV. It's basically the same broadcaster, so why not use the same broadcasters, if you catch my drift? So on the chat, there is still no link to call in. All right, well, maybe the link's not working today. Apologies, folks. I don't think we're going to get some calls today. Let me try one more time here and see if this is going to work. One more time. While I'm doing that, yeah, History Nerd 1814 also saying no link in the chat. While that is happening, let's go to Richard's comments. Richard says, what a run for Woods. Who had Litre to an offensive lineman get a pass interference penalty on their bingo card? Steve Dunbar Jr. gets my player of the game. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, Stephen Dunbar Jr. definitely deserving some huge accolades with his performance today because, listen, that was probably his best game, maybe in a Ticats uniform, even after leaving for the first time. Had a great, spate of performances before he left, then ends up leaving, and then comes back, and I thought that was his best performance in a Ticats uniform. This is Vince Conti Some love for Bo as player of the game. He spread the ball around well. First vote for Bo Levi Mitchell. Definitely, I thought Bo was more than effective tonight. There was probably some passes in the first half, especially, that he would want back. But 20 of 27 for 299 yards, 2 TDs, and an interception is pretty good. Pretty good. Randy on X says, I can see the link to call in. It was highlighted. Thank you, Randy. So maybe double check the top of the chat. I've posted it a couple times in the chat. And, well, I know it's working for a fact because now we have our first person calling in, and that is Big Ticats fan who's joining me. Big Ticats fan. The link is working. You're on the show with us. How are you today?
Doing good. It was a good game. I was there today, and my buddy Jeff, that's also a big fan of yours, Rick, he was coming down from Edmonton, joined us for the game, and it was a good time. And my game ball goes to that team. They worked together. They were looking a little sloppy in the second half a little bit there, but they came back and they played as a team and they play hard. So the ball goes to game ball to me. Sorry, goes to the team.
So the whole team is getting your player of the game.
I got to say, because today was a game where if they were going to give up on just the season itself, even though we're last place in the league, but it was you still played the part, passion and pride. Let's keep it going in the next season.
What do you think their chances are? Is it going to be a mountain to climb for this team to make the playoffs, or are you thinking like Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber, there's a little bit of a chance?
Yeah, you got me there, but I don't know. It would let's just accept a win and move on and go from there.
I hear you. Great call, Big Ticats fan. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
You too. Thank you. Cheers.
That is Big Ticats fan. So, all right, yeah, the link is working. Thank you. I didn't think I did it wrong, but you know me and technology. Brad says, there we go. I think just celebrating that we had a call. Steel City coach. Steinauer, Hervey, Alamang all need to go. Not happy. Steel City coach, not happy to win today. Still looking for changes, and that's okay. That's what makes fans, right? Not everything's perfect. Fans have called for change many times during the year. That is for sure. Let's see this one. Oh, also Steel City coach in the chat. Too much fan complacency. 4-9 is nowhere near acceptable. Offseason needs to see Bo Levi gone and whatever they can do to get Curtis Rourke. Add to that, gutting player personnel staff. Hubcap says, hey, Rick, what will it take to make the playoffs at this point? Hashtag Argos suck. I love the hashtag. So listen, it's going to be a very tall order to catch Toronto, if not impossible. And it would be impossible if they don't beat the Argos next Friday night. But win that game and you're 4 points back at Toronto. So there's a glimmer of hope. But 4 points is a lot to catch up in the last few weeks of the season. The crossover spot seems to be the more likely of the two scenarios because you're only 3 points behind Saskatchewan at this point. Saskatchewan is 11 points. Edmonton is 10. And yes, they both have the tiebreaker against the Ticats. But in the crossover scenario, you need to get one more point than the third place team in the opposite division. So Hamilton at this point is going to have to do some heavy lifting here. They have 8 points, so 3 behind. So, I mean, we can all do the math. They need to pile up some wins in hopes that Saskatchewan and Edmonton really stumble down the gate. Now, Sask has been doing that. The question is, will they continue? And that's probably where we think, they're gonna turn around at some point. Edmonton started out super slow, 0-7. They're now 5-8 on the season. They've won 5 out of their last 6. Saskatchewan has lost 6 of their last 7. So maybe it's Edmonton that is the team that the Ticats have to look at to say, okay, that's the team that we need to, really pay attention to. Colton is going to join us here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. Colton, hello, how are you?
Hey, Rick, how's it going?
I'm fantastic. I'm ecstatic that you've called into the show.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Sorry about that. Getting ready for a wedding here in 2 weeks, so
nice.
A lot of focus on that, but the focus on the boys today. They did awesome. I think top to bottom. I got a little worried when Mazzoli went in and started slinging it the way he was doing that. And I was like, oh, this would be such a Ticat way to lose, wouldn't it, if he came in and came back? Yes. But honestly, it was great, and I felt confident in the offense. And then when the defense kept coming on, I kept thinking, like, we're doing this. We're doing well. And the biggest turning point of this game is when's the last time you saw a Ticat game where you had that many calls go our way?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Like that was like I couldn't believe it. I was like it's like the Twilight Zone or something like that. Like they had face masks every time there was a flag. It's because I'm so used to it. Just I wonder what it's going to be on Hamilton. And then it kept going against Ottawa, and I think that was fantastic. That was such a good feeling. I had number 84s on Ottawa's cousins sitting next to me though, so I felt a little bad getting up and cheering because they were a little upset, but they had a good time too. And I'm just glad how loud the stadium has been, even though, considering our record, but you never say never, right? I mean, it is the CFL, and if there is the first team ever in the East to cross over to the West, shouldn't it be the Ticats, right? Because we've done crazier things before, so
it would be
we'll
awesome.
see.
Yeah, it would be awesome. So who's your player of the game?
Peters. Honestly, I think he played awesome. And what's his name again? Sorry, Litre. Sorry, Litre played awesome too. So I think those two guys, of course, they played awesome.
Absolutely, great choices. Colton, thanks for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
All right, you too.
Have a good one. That is Colton, and great calls, great points. We got Jamie standing by. Jamie, we're going to get to you in just a second. Hang on. Hubcap 1266. I'm not sure what happened here, but he says, I'm concerned about the Box J boys throwing small children. Any thoughts on what could be done to resolve this? I'm not sure what small children they're throwing around, but hopefully it is theirs and no one is getting hurt. And Caitlin says, my spouse told you 2 weeks ago Lawrence Woods would be a game breaker. My spouse is the Ticats Messiah. You have to have him on. Caitlin, tell him to call in. We need the Ticats Messiah on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. That is for sure. And Michael says we need to hang on to Chris Jones. Yeah, listen, Chris Jones right now is a senior defensive assistant. We need to make him the defensive coordinator, pay him a boatload of money, keep him here, because what he's doing is working for the Ticats. That is for sure. Thoughts on today's game? Vote for your player of the game. You can do so on email, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. You can click on the link in the chat to join me live on the show as well. Of course, vote for your player of the game. Big win today for the Ticats, 37-21. They're now 4-9 on the season. Ottawa falls to 8-4-1. Let's go to Jamie, who's called into the Fifth Quarter Show here on YouTube. Jamie, hello.
Hey. Hi.
Jamie's got a clan. You got a whole clan with you.
Yeah, we do. He's lucky. Lots of women. Ticat fans.
All right. Thoughts on today's game?
I'll tell you what, Rick. I am the Messiah that you just previously mentioned.
Oh, look out, Nelly.
Yeah. I told you earlier a couple weeks ago that when Lawrence Woods comes back, he's going to be a game breaker, and lo and behold, he turns the tide of the game tonight. And you really got to respect it. So I look for more big things from Lawrence moving forward. But with my group with me here tonight, we're actually wondering what's going on with Butler. I mean, did we hear that he's a healthy scratch?
You heard correctly, yes. James Butler is a healthy scratch. There has been a debate really for a few weeks now on the status of James Butler. Now, he did get hurt, and Greg Bell was inserted. But Butler's been healthy for a few weeks now. And I asked head coach Scott Milanovich earlier this week, it was at practice on Tuesday, and I said, listen, Bell versus Butler is a hot topic in the community. What gives? Why are we dressing Bell and not Butler, or why not both? And so here's the answer he gave me. He likes the explosiveness and the quickness and the speed and the second level speed that Greg Bell has as opposed to James Butler. And he described Butler as the power back and Bell as the quick back. And we saw some of that quickness tonight. But I also asked him, is there a scenario where you can dress both? And he said, given the circumstances or the opponent, that could be an option. But remember, you got to take an American off another spot. And the roster composition, again, his words, the roster composition right now doesn't allow that, or he doesn't want that to happen. So he doesn't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, I guess, in essence.
Yeah, Rick,
with Greg Bell getting hurt tonight, Butler might be back in the lineup against Toronto.
I think I agree with you. I was kind of explaining the roster composition with American players tonight with these ladies around me, and I understand that completely. So the fact that Lawrence, as an American-born special teamer, can come back and be that impact player, it's great to see. That man deserves all the kudos. He is a salt-of-the-earth kind of player, and really appreciate what he did tonight, and I think we're going to see more of him. Another question that we did have while we're on with you now is Tagliaviola So sad to see what happened to his older brother on Thursday, and it's really a disheartening moment. I thought I would have seen more of his younger brother tonight, and we didn't see that. So just curious what your thoughts are on what we forecast for the quarterback position moving forward in Hamilton.
Did they put him back on the players' training team roster?
No, he was on the field actually today, or he was on the sideline at least. He didn't get into the game, but yeah, Talia Tagovailoa is still a Ticat. Apparently,
I love that you get to say that properly. I
listen,
know
I'm a Dolphins fan, so I've been practicing his name for a while now.
Tua's brother Tua. Good to you. You can say that properly, just so you know.
Yeah, so his younger brother is on the active roster. Didn't get into the game today because basically they leaned on Ante Milanovic-Litre, one of your picks, who was solid in short yardage, even threw a pass, as you know. Did a great job. Is a great special teams player. Litre has been one of the best pickups of any team in free agency. A big check mark to the Ticats front office for bringing him on board. But Tagovailoa is one of the guys who I think is part of this Ticats future at the quarterback position. Bo Levi's north of 30. Tagovailoa in his mid-20s. He could be counted upon maybe in the years to come to be that guy that kind of grabs the torch and is the next big thing. But he's got some growing to do, that's for sure.
Rick, we won't keep you too much longer, but we did look at the negotiation list earlier this week that got released by the CFL. This is an annual thing that happens every year. And a couple of big names really popped out on that list. And unfortunately, we didn't see too many from the Hamilton Ticats. I mean, Frank Gore Jr., Max Dugan were on those lists. But for the Ticats, I mean, there were a lot of names that were intriguing, but nothing that really jumped off the board. What are your thoughts on those negotiation lists?
Yeah, you know what? There's no guarantee that we'll see any of these guys. Correct. But, there is a chance, whether it's Jalen Daniels at Kansas, Adrian Martinez at Kansas State, a lot of guys from the Kansas area. Listen, there's guys I think that contribute in the long run. These are, future prospects, blue chippers that if their NFL dreams don't pan out, because we all know that is, the be-all and end-all for a lot of these NCAA players. If that doesn't work out, the CFL is a great option. I know there's, the USFL or the USL, and I know there's, other playing options out there. But the CFL, I think a lot of the CFLers right now who are American will attest, is an awesome league. And who knows? One of these guys might be the future stars of tomorrow.
100%. Thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Don't be a stranger. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a good one. Great comments there by Ticats Messiah and Jamie. Chiming in on their thoughts on today's game, voting for their players of the game, both Peters and Litre, who had an outstanding game today. John E. says, Chris Jones has improved our defense since Washington has been gone. Absolutely. And he says, Friday the 13th was yesterday. A lot of the calls went our way the next day. Coincidence? DARPA says, great win. Why don't we play Butler anymore, though? I think I just kind of referenced that. History Nerd is back saying, keep Chris Jones as defensive coordinator. Don't put him as head coach. I don't think that's an option right now. I think Scott Milanovic is somewhat safe going into next season. It's all going to depend on how this team finishes. But I said earlier, they're kind of trending in the right direction. They played Winnipeg really tough. They beat Toronto on Labor Day, which is always, as we all know, hugely important. They really demolish Ottawa. And if it wasn't, those 2 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, this could have been really a runaway game for the Ticats. But the proof is going to be in the pudding coming down the stretch. In Toronto next week, they're going to BC the week after that. They're hosting Winnipeg. They're hosting Calgary, and then they end the season in Ottawa. So lots of work to do. The playoffs are nowhere near guaranteed. They could be a crossover team, which would be exciting. But they dug themselves, they being the Ticats, dug themselves a huge hole at the start of the season. They had to do a lot better in the first couple of months, that is for sure. Few ways for you to interact on the show as we approach the 45-minute mark here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube. You can email. You can see it right on the screen now, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. There is a link at the top, and I think there's a couple more links that I shared throughout the show for you to click on and call in. Basically, you click on the link, you're put into a waiting room, and then I think you put in your name or email, and then you come on the air or on the show with me. And you can also email fifthquartershow@gmail.com, as I mentioned, and on X as well, at Rick Zamperin and hashtag fifth quarter, as you are very accustomed to doing so. I'm trying to find my email, and here it is. Back to the email. This one is from Alan, who says, "Hey, Rick, it's Alan from St. Catharines. Well, it got a little scary when Masoli scored 2 touchdowns to get them back in the game, but the third drive for Masoli, Hamilton gets the interception and Bell scores to put us back up to majors. Great team effort, but my players of the game goes to 3 players, Bo Levi Mitchell, Greg Bell, and Stephen Dunbar, who has been absolutely amazing tonight with over 150 yards. So, Mitchell, Bell, Dunbar. Boom. The Argos winning last night hurt us in the standings, but this win gives us 4 total wins and 2 of them against Toronto. Still a chance for a crossover, but it could be too late for us. We will see. We play Toronto again next week. This could have a playoff feel to it because they're at 7 wins and we are at 4. Hamilton fans need to pack the house at BMO Field next week. The Ticats are fighting for their lives. Hopefully Greg Bell is not injured because we only have Litre left if that's the case. Well, Alan, actually, no. James Butler still on the team, and he is a healthy scratch. He would be raring to go, especially against Toronto. Nice to see Lawrence Woods get that touchdown tonight. Welcome back, Woods, says Alan, and he finishes off his email saying, the crowd didn't look too big tonight, but I bet most fans didn't think we would beat Ottawa today. We did it, and we need to show our support down the QEW. They're deserving of it. Let's go, Cats. I believe, says Alan. Do you believe? That is the question. And if you do, hit me up by clicking on that link and appearing on the show. You can email fifthquartershow@gmail.com. That's 5th, fifthquartershow@gmail.com. And, or on X, @Rick Zamperin is the handle. Use the hashtag fifthquarter. Ashton Josh Allen era. Just call him Ashton. This is incredible for Hamilton with now 7 picks in their last 3 games under interim DC Chris Jones. Like this is ridiculous. And Chris says, solid win by the Ticats. Finally finished watching. Bell was definitely my player of the game. @Rick Zamperin, 5th quarter. Another vote for Bell. So let's get a quick tally here on votes for player of the game. Right now, it's Stephen Dunbar Jr. with 6 votes. Greg Bell has 4. Bo Levi with a couple for the offensive line, 3 for the defense as a whole, and votes for the team. Jamal Peters, Masoli got a vote, and Ante Milanovic Litre with a vote as well. Back to the email, and this one is from Ken. Ken says, hey, Rick, what a fun game to watch. This is the first time all season that I actually invited friends over for a barbecue and to watch outside. I normally do this a few times each year, but the way the team was performing, I never wanted to do so all summer. I was watching the game off and on while barbecuing, but at one point I saw they didn't count a catch that looked good to me. What do you think about that play? I'll get to that, but I'll finish off Ken's email. Ken says, anyways, I think Tommy Condell was player of the game because he wasn't calling plays for us. Thanks for keeping the show alive. I appreciate you, Ken. Player of the game, Tommy Condell. Okay. That might be a little tongue-in-cheek, but I'm going to write it down just for poops and giggles. The catch that wasn't a catch. So this was the Keandre Smith. It was called incomplete on the field. The play was blown dead. Smith, and the replay showed, and I think they showed this in the stadium as well, because it drew a lot of boos, that he actually caught the ball. I mean, his hands were underneath the ball. They were very close to the ground, for sure. So I can see where the official kind of got mistaken, but it was clear that the replay showed that his hands were under the football. He kind of juggled it, but still caught it. Started running. The play was blown dead. And a lot of fans were like, hey, why don't you challenge this? And I thought, yeah, this is not a challengeable play. And we were kind of having this discussion in the press box. So here is the list of challengeable aspects of a game. This is on the CFL's list of rules, basically. So here's the plays you can challenge. Whether or not a no yards infraction took place, we've seen a lot of those being challenged. Offensive or defensive pass interference, certainly that has been a key factor in the game for a few years now. Whether or not a penalty for blocking downfield by an eligible receiver took place. Saw that, I think, a few weeks ago in a Ticats game. Whether a called illegal block on a kick play took place. Whether or not an infraction for roughing the passer or roughing the kicker took place. For the purposes of replay, roughing the passer will include any act committed on a designated quarterback behind the line of scrimmage. And the last one being whether or not the quarterback was tripped behind the line of scrimmage. Those are the challengeable aspects in the Canadian Football League, and I was kind of surprised that the list was that small. I thought it was a lot longer than that. But again, that is why that challenge flag was not tossed, and that catch basically was ruled incomplete. And the play was blown dead, and we couldn't challenge it, or the Ticats couldn't challenge it. In the chat, Civil Defense Canada says, good evening. Good win today, though they are fading fast in the fourth. Litre was player of the game today. Another vote for Ante Milanovic Litre. Seemed like he had a great game today. And statistically, I mean, it's even beyond statistics, but statistically, he got, a few carries down the stretch here, 10 carries, 36 yards. But every time he was counted upon to make a play, short yardage, 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, whatever the case was, Ante Milanovic Litre got the first down, got the job done, made a big block, made a great special teams tackle, whatever the case is. Everything he's been asked to do, Litre has done it, and has done so remarkably well. And that is, when you're looking at the backfield for the Ticats, I guess another element as to why Butler is not on the field. Again, Milanovic earlier this week at practice says he wants Bell's explosiveness and quickness and that second gear when it comes to top speed in the lineup, as opposed to Butler's power kind of run game. Now you throw Litre into the mix, who's got that power run game, who's got the short yardage experience, who's got the blocking ability, who also plays special teams, neither of which Bell or Butler do. So you kind of, in terms of the roster composition, which American are you going to take off to get Butler on the field if you want Bell in the lineup as well? And if it's a case of one or the other, Milanovic has already kind of, made his choice in that regard. All right, a few ways you can interact with me on the show in the chat as you're doing so, and I still have many more messages to read from the chat. On X, the hashtag is 5th quarter. The handle is @Rick Zamperin. You can also click on the link, and I think there's a few links now within the chat. Click on that link. You'll be entered into a waiting room, and then I'll bring you on the show. Richard says he was in for one play. He was in when Litre was in at quarterback. Oh, this is Tagovailoa. Yeah, I think he had the one play, short yardage situation, but didn't touch the football on that play. Lisa in the chat says, Bell and Litre, my calls. Great to see the calls were not against the Cats. Lots of great energy on that field. My dad is smiling down from heaven for sure. Lisa, if your dad's watching in heaven, he was more than impressed with the Ticats and their victory today. Thanks for chiming in here on the 5th quarter. And I guess it's Bell and Litre for your votes for players of the game. Stephen Dunbar Jr. still leading the pack in that regard. And just going through his stats as well, Dunbar Jr. targeted 8 times tonight. He made all 8 of those catches. 151 receiving yards, 1 big touchdown. Bridges, 5 catches for 55 yards. And Bo Levi, 20 for 27, 299 through the air, 2 TDs, 1 interception. Greg Bell, 15 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown. And defensively, 6 turnovers. You had the interception from Talbert, 1 from Peters. You had a turnover on downs, a couple of forced fumbles, an all-around great effort by this Ticats defense and team, top to bottom. Great team effort. Hussey's Huddle says, my vote for player of the game is Dunbar. Need more games like this from him. He's a key cog, right? Tim White, option 1. Shamar Bridges, option 2. And you might, reverse those from game to game. Stephen Dunbar with that 3rd option has been delivering in certain games. Certainly today he did. That was, as I said earlier, his best game of the season. Lisa also coming back with another comment saying, we still need a positive chant for our Cats, not Argos suck, especially when not playing the Argos. I feel you there. When we're not playing the Argos, we need I guess it's the Oskee Weavy. I mean, that goes back generations. So let's just keep that one. John E. says, my dad passed away on September 14th, 2011. And I know my dad is watching from heaven also, Lisa. Prayers for our dads, Lisa. John, it's an anniversary, obviously, that you remember with probably some good memories of your dad. But whenever you're losing a parent, it's not a good feeling. So my condolences to both John and Lisa for their dads no longer physically watching the Ticats, but they got the best seat in the house, let me tell you. They got the best seat in the house. Sean says, player of the game, Bell, big win, Cats. And I believe that is it for the chat, unless I went over a couple. No, I think I am good thus far. So let's check out the email. I think there's still some emails coming in. Yep, this one is from Joe. Joe says, hi, Rick, love your show. Woods was great. Bell is a keeper. Best effort of the year, was very enjoyable. White, quiet today. Need more from him. Let's keep it going. Player of the game, Dunbar Jr. Another vote for Steven. Take care, Rick. Joey M. on the email. The email address is fifthquartershow, 5th, fifthquartershow @gmail.com. James says the Ticats season and Hall of Fame have something in common. Both are a bunch of busts. James. Yeah, James, I mean, accurate. It was not a good start to the season. This team has a lot of work to do. Dug a big hole at the start of the year and needs to be better. Needs to be better in a hurry. And, the troubling part of this whole thing is that you can't get those wins back. You can't get those games back. Those games are done. They're spoken for. It was a time in which this team had a chance to do something big and just could not get, for whatever reason, the ball going the way they wanted it to go. The defense had some issues. The offense, while, it had some great games at the start, certainly in terms of statistics, it wasn't the best in terms of picking up those wins. It's too bad, because now that we're seeing how this team can, kind of play, it's too bad. Too bad that hole was dug too deep at the start of the show. Michael says, are you getting support from the team for the show? Listen, other than best wishes and a good luck, that is pretty much it at this time. There's no, not that I would expect it or even accept it at this time. There's no sponsorship dollars on the table from anyone. I've told all comers who have offered to sponsor the show, listen, this is just for fun right now. There's a big void in this community. I'm doing this show to basically talk to you guys. It's my favorite show. It's a show that I've always kind of treated as your show. This is your platform to kind of have your say on what is happening with the black and gold. So yeah, we've kind of just left it at that. Apart from well wishes and good luck, and that's all I expected. We're having a lot of fun here on the show. Brad says Dunbar is the new Tasker, which yeah, I can see that to a degree, and Tasker might blush at that, but I think that's more of a boost, if you will, to Dunbar. I loved Luke Tasker when he was playing. He was versatile. He's holding field goals. Great receiver. He's a better blocker than I think a lot of people gave him credit for. But yeah, he had some skills. That is for sure. Lisa in on the chat. I'm going to have to read this too. Thanks, John E. June 2nd, 2023 for my dad. He introduced me to the Cats in 1984. Been a season ticket holder most of the years since. 23 with my dad. Bring your kids, everyone. I was 15. That's a great point. Going to a Ticats, whether it's a Ticats game, an Argos game, just a CFL game in general, is just so much fun. So much fun being in the ballpark. A lot more fun when they're winning, right, as opposed to losing. But it is a time when you can celebrate with, whether it's a parent, another family member, just a group of pals, kind of hanging out and watching a game. There's something special about the Canadian Football League, and I think part of it is that they're not multi-gazillionaires, right? This is not the National Football League. There are some players in the NFL that make as much money as the entire league, which is just crazy to think. But it is what it is. Sean says, thanks for the fifth quarter player of the game. Bell with another vote. And listen, I think we're going to wind it up here. We're approaching the hour mark. I'm going to tabulate the votes. We'll anoint our player of the game as the Ticats beat Ottawa 37-21. I do want to mention this as well, that the Ticats Wall of Honor dinner, and I had some notes written down. I was kind of looking for them, and I'm not sure where I saved them. Ticats Wall of Honor dinner is October the 3rd at Michelangelo's. That's a Thursday night. the Wall of Honor game honoring Mike Walker and Bernie Custis, the latest inductees into the Wall of Honor, will be held on October the 4th, the night later. And there's going to be a dinner on the 3rd, October 3rd, at Michelangelo's. Tickets on the website, htcaa.ca, htcaa.ca. Go to the website. There's a little link on the website. You can buy the tickets. They're $125. Great meal, awesome appetizers, drinks. The company's going to be amazing. All Ticats fans. And Dwayne Ford is going to be the MC. Dwayne Ford from TSN, former Ticats CFL player who is now broadcasting with TSN, is going to be the host for the evening. So that should be a lot of fun. Paul says, just tuned in. Sorry for being late. Thanks, Rick, for keeping this going. Do you think the Cats could win out and make the playoffs? Player of the game, Bo Levi Mitchell. Okay. Well, Paul, you forced me now to go to the Ticats schedule. Can they win out? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, Paul. At Toronto, Friday, September the 20th. That is nearly as must-win as you can get, right? You want to stay in the playoff hunt. You get 2 points closer to Toronto, one of your main targets, but still, you'll still be far away from them. Still be 4 points, even with a win, still 4 points back with a handful of games to play. So in Toronto, that's going to be a huge game. The Ticats have beaten Toronto already twice this season. So, it's possible. It's possible. Week 17, they're in BC. It's another Friday night game. It's not a short week, which is great. It's not an extra long week. There's no buys in between. This is a Friday. In fact, I think the rest of the game, they're all Friday nights from here on in for the Ticats. So Friday night in Toronto. Next Friday night, September 27th in BC. Friday, October the 4th, the Wall of Honor game. 7 o'clock start. Winnipeg is in town. And the Bombers, I'm sure, are going to have something to play for. That's not going to be an easy game. Ticats host Calgary on October the 18th, another Friday night. That certainly is a winnable game. And then close out the season Friday, October the 25th in Ottawa. Could that game mean anything? The Ticats are hoping the answer is yes. So is it possible? Can this team rattle off wins against Toronto, BC, Winnipeg, Calgary, Ottawa? Man, it's going to be tough. Going to be tough. I'm saying nearly impossible to go on a streak like that. Let's not forget, they've already won 2 in a row. So you're going to tell me they're going to win 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row to end the season? Wow, are they the Montreal Alouettes all of a sudden? I don't think so. They're playing much better. And I'm not going to rule it out, but it is going to be tough to run the table from here on in. They're 4-9 right now. Right? They've played 13 games. Wow, 5 more to go. 5 more in a row. If they get to 4 wins, it's going to be interesting, folks. Like if they get to 4 out of the next 5, I guess it would be 6 out of the last 7. Man, I would not want to play the Ticats, that is for sure. If you're another team. Harley says, much love and thank you for keeping the show alive, brother. Go Tiger Cats, go. Brad says, Cat fans need to get to BMO Friday night. There's always lots of seats available. That is certainly very true. Jake the Snake says, Argos suck. Brad says, hell yes. I think in relation to running the table. Saying, keeping the faith, Oski wee wee. History Nerd says, Argos suck. Paul says, West crossover. Paul, that's what I'm looking at. Ticats have 8 points. Saskatchewan has 11. Edmonton has 10. That's the scenario I'm looking at. But the other thing I'm thinking about too is Sask is they've been tumbling. They've lost 6 out of their last 7. Edmonton going the other way. They've won 5 out of their last 6. So maybe it's Edmonton that the Ticats really have to look at. But, Sask is not a team that's just going to roll over. They're going to want to get back on track. But yeah, I think the West, let's put it this way. The West crossover is way more achievable than usurping Toronto at this point of the season. There's no doubt about that. No doubt in my mind. Ben says, Bell for player of the game. Thank you, sir. I hope he's okay. Any news on Luther Hakudavanu? Luther still on the 6th game. I've heard there's a potential for him to come back, although a timeline really hasn't been shared, with me at least. So it's obviously the last, few games of the season. I don't think he's coming back next week or maybe even the week after that. it could be kind of down the stretch scenario for him. Harley says, nobody blows like the Argos. And Hussey Huddle says, I thought they might have a chance at the playoffs had Toronto lost last night. And that is a good point. If Toronto loses last night, if Toronto goes into BC and loses against the Lions and they have 12 points and they're 6-7 on the season, and Hamilton does what they did today and they're 4-9, I'd be like, okay, now I believe this. Now I believe this can indeed happen, because there would be 4 points back at Toronto right now with a big game in TO coming up, and potentially 2 points back of the Argonauts with a handful of games to play. If Toronto lost last night and Hamilton still ends up winning today, I'd push more of my chips into the middle to say, let's go. Let's ride. Let's make the playoffs already. Let's beat this Toronto team next week and kind of put a big foot forward into getting that postseason spot. Right now, the East that's going to be a tough nut to crack to get an Eastern Division playoff spot. We shall see. All right, no more emails, no more social posts on X. And Paul says, yeah, agreed on last night's game. Too bad. Yeah, I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda. But again, if this team doesn't dig the hole that they did at the start of the year, we're having a whole different discussion today. A whole different discussion. There's also one other thing I wanted to mention. It's happening at the Westdale tomorrow, and I think it's from 1 to 4. And this is the Hamilton Accessibility Alliance putting on a film festival. And again, I had all this stuff written down. I don't remember where I saved it. But it's from 1 to 4. It's at the Westdale. You can get your tickets on the Westdale website, thewestdale.ca. It's free, but you can make a financial donation to Hamilton Food Share. So if you show up with, a card or some cash, they'll gladly accept it. Hamilton Accessibility Alliance with a film festival tomorrow at the Westdale. The first film is at 1 o'clock, and there's some pretty good films. You can check it out on the Westdale website as well. All right, so let's tabulate the votes here. 37-21 the final. Hamilton over Ottawa. Ticats now 4-9. The player of the game voted by you, the fans, here on the Fifth Quarter Show on YouTube, Stephen Dunbar Jr. A lot of honorable mentions because a lot of other players got some votes. Greg Bell especially, Bo Levi Mitchell, Ante Milanovic, Litre with a strong game as well. Most importantly, thank you for tuning in, for hopping on the chat, sending me emails, going on X, being crazy supportive in the community. I've bumped into a number of individuals, fans, who have said, hey, thanks for bringing the show back or keeping it alive. I'm going to comment on the next show, and a lot of people that I've kind of run into over the last number of days have certainly done that. The show's going to continue this year, no doubt about that. And next year we're gonna amp it up. That's my plan, to amp it up, and maybe who knows, end a certain drought in this community. Dave on the chat says, came for the CFL, stayed for that handsome mug. I don't know if you're talking about this one. Face for Radio is still alive and well, that is for sure. Thanks to all who came on the show today and offered their thoughts. Vote for your player of the game. We are back next Friday night. It is the Tiger Cats. It is the Argonauts. And we're going to have a lot of fun on that show for sure, especially after a Hamilton win. We'll see you then, and have a great rest of your weekend.